Welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. Our team's goal is to present science-based information about gardening and all things nature in New York's Hudson Valley. Our hosts are Master Gardener volunteers for the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene counties, midpoint along the Hudson River Valley. So if you're interested in gardening or nature or just nuggets of information about what's happening outside your door, listen in and enjoy the conversation. Whatever the season, we'll always have something to talk about.
Hi, I'm Annie Scibienski,
And I'm Taly, Louria.
and welcome to Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. Our guest today is Troy Weldy, president of the Columbia Land Conservancy. Howdy, Troy. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've been on the podcast before. I think last time you were here, you were with Sarah Cash and talking about things the Land Conservancy is doing and the many free walks we could take across the high number of properties that are under development. It's close to a dozen now, isn't it?
It is, and we're about to launch a new website called letsgococo.org, and that will allow you to see all of the places across Columbia County where you can go recreate, not just the lands owned by the Columbia Land Conservancy.
Oh, very cool.
Troy, you're here to talk about a really interesting and important area in the county called the Taganic Headwaters Community Forest, and a significant piece of forest land that is both beautiful and incredibly important. Part of the Taganic Headwaters that the Land Conservancy is hoping to acquire and protect soon. Tell us about that.
It's a 500 plus acre property in the town of Taconic, and we have a sales contract to acquire the property. It's a area within what we call the Mid-Hudson Forest Corridor. That's an important piece that allows us to link the southern Appalachians all the way up to the Green Mountains and into the Canadian wilderness.
Let's start maybe with defining what headwaters are and wildlife corridors. So as we hit on that, everybody's using the same definition.
Headwaters are the upper parts of watersheds, so the very head of or the headwaters in a watershed. And so it's the lands and waters at the upper stretches of these areas. So for the Taconic headwaters, it would be the upper portions of the Taconic Creek watershed. And that spans the towns of Copac, Hillsdale, Claverick, and Taconic within Columbia County.
That's a big, big territory. I mean, just as a percentage of the county, that's probably close to a third of the county, right?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it is it's one of the larger watersheds in the county.
That's great. And that, my understanding is the primary source for the city of Hudson.
It's the Hudson's drinking water.
That's important. So the purchase of this land is obviously not something you're doing off the side of your desk. It's taking a lot of community effort to get people involved, get the right organizations involved. And I understand you've put together a committee from various towns to represent the interests.
So there are two different things. So there was the committee that was studying the Taconic headwaters, and this was a group that came together to help guide us in regards to what's the most important aspects of the headwaters that we should focus on. So we were looking at this area of the wildlife corridor, this Mid-Hudson Wildlife Corridor, and defining what that is, identifying the important parcels within there, looking at wetlands within the Taconic headwaters that are important. And there was a study that then was produced from this Taconic headwaters plan that included acquisition of property as one of the things we were looking to do. Once the plan was completed, we sent in a grant to New York State to do conservation within the Taconic headwaters. It was something where I told staff, I was like, just submit the grant. I don't think we're going to get it. And lo and behold, we actually got it. So then we had to decide and work with the committee a little bit about where are we going to do land conservation. Initially, the plan was to do 1,000 acres of conservation easements within the watershed. But the parameters of the grant included that we had to have a 300-foot buffer along all waterways within the properties, and they defined a waterway as a ditch. We found that unworkable. So we had to pivot, and the state allowed us to, instead of doing easements, to buy land with the property. So then we started looking for property in which we could acquire within the Taconic headwaters. And this property that we are going to soon deem as the Taconic Headwaters Community Forest rose to the top. And that's the one that we will be closing on in June of 2025.
From what I understand, just the acquisition cost itself is going to run around $4 million.
The total project cost is $9 million.
Yikes.
The land appraised at $6 million, and we got the landowner to agree to sell it to us for $4 million.
Wow.
So a big chunk of that, about $3 million, is coming from New York State. Scenic Hudson is providing a significant chunk towards that. There's a private foundation that's adding to that, and then we're doing fundraising in addition to that.
That's wonderful. I can see the campaign. I chipped in to buy a forest. Ask me about my forest.
The other part that we're fundraising for, how we get to $9 million, is that we also want to raise the forever costs. So owning any property, whether it's a house or land, costs money.
Right.
So we're looking at raising $2 million that will allow us to create an endowment to draw from for our annual cost on the property. We continue to pay a payment in lieu of taxes on properties that we own, which is something that not a lot of people realize. They think that when we're buying land that it comes off the tax rolls. We actually continue with the pilot or payment in lieu of taxes.
It's a very ambitious project. I'm really glad it's underway. That's a tremendous amount of land, and the idea that it's going to be protected is a real gift to the entire area, not just Columbia County.
Is this the first watershed that your organization is getting involved with?
We've done protection within watersheds throughout our history. This is one that became a focal point. It actually started just before I came on board, and it was something that we continue to move forward with, and the property that we're protecting is one outcome of that. We're actually looking to expand this work to go countywide. What we're going to do countywide is we're coming up with a Columbia County Conservation Plan that will identify the most important lands within the county, but also allow each town to identify what are their most important parcels within their town. So we're looking to, similar with this community forest, how we want to bring the community together to help us with this plan and management of the land. We're looking to bring the community together in regards to overall conservation in Columbia County. So each town will have their most important parcels. There are the conservation advisory committees in each town. They will then be able to look at what are the most important parcels there. Planning boards can use it. I hope eventually it becomes the basis of a countywide comprehensive plan where we have conservation fully integrated into a countywide plan that not only looks at conservation, but is looking at housing, is looking at renewable energy siting, and overall development.
The idea of a countywide strategic plan that looks at all of those factors is obviously very strategic and visionary. With the structures already in place in the various towns and communities, have you sensed inspiration, willingness to pitch in across town lines to do this kind of countywide project?
Overall, I'm sensing excitement from towns across the county and with these advisory committees across the county to lean in on this. It does vary from town to town in regards to what that participation is. Some of them are very excited, and some of them I haven't heard from yet.
It seems to always be the case.
I wonder, does Columbia County itself have such a strategic plan? Strategic plan exists, or you're the first ones to put one in place?
Most of these comp plans are done at the town level. They haven't pulled them together to look at it at a full countywide vision.
This is the first time that we're going to have a countywide vision of the natural resources that are important to protect.
In
Right.
Columbia County,
in
yeah.
Columbia County.
Mhm.
That's quite formidable.
Yeah, I like an experiment. Let's go for it. Speaking of different things, experimental things, new things, I know this isn't news to you, but it was news to me. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about something I just read, Troy. I read that CLC facilitated the purchase of a huge tract of land adjacent to Taconic State Park,
Lake Taconic State Park.
Lake Taconic State Park.
So when I arrived, there was a piece of property that was on the market that it was a rather expensive parcel, and it was something that state parks told us that they wanted to acquire. It includes a house that they're hoping to make the park manager's house, and a barn and storage. There's some wetlands on the property. Really nice piece of land, but also quite expensive. What we were able to do was negotiate with the landowner for a lower price and find a foundation that gave us a no interest loan to go buy the property. I believe we acquired the property in 2021, and it just takes New York State a long time in order to acquire any land, which is why they weren't able just to buy the property from the landowner originally. So we were able to step in rather quickly, buy the land, and then have held it for the state for about 3 years. And that's about how long it takes New York State to acquire a piece of property once they've decided they want to buy it.
No wonder this wasn't news to you.
So we've been sitting on it for 3 years. We actually have another parcel right now that we're holding for New York State DEC. That is adjacent to BB Hill State Forest. And within the next couple of weeks, we are going to acquire another piece for DEC that will eventually be added to the Hand Hollow State Forest.
It's exciting to hear and recognize all of the strategic partnerships that CLC has formed or once formed manages to maintain for the good of the overall community and county. I mean, it's obviously got implications beyond the county. I know lots of people who come to our county to enjoy what we have here.
Mm.
So that's really good. Are there new strategic partnerships on the horizon?
We're always looking at different partners in which to work with. The newest one that is just beginning to be talked about is with the city of Hudson. So just last week, we closed on a parcel of land that is about 50 acres that's going to allow us to build a trail from downtown Hudson into our Greenport Conservation Area.
Wow.
As part of that, there is a city park there called Charles Williams Park. And the city has long wanted to renovate that, but hasn't had the resources or even the time to do so. We are likely to step in, take temporary oversight of that park through a revocable license with the city, renovate the park with new basketball courts, playground areas, pavilions, picnic areas, and then have that as our gateway into the Greenport Conservation Area directly from Hudson.
That's very exciting news.
That is amazing.
And it pulls us into Hudson. It pulls us into not just doing conservation in more rural areas of the county, but it gets us more directly involved in urban conservation and parklands, traditional parklands with playgrounds.
That's cool. So the Greenport area is already accessible to the public. The park's already accessible to the public. Now there's a purchase of land that's going to link them, and we're going to refresh the park entrance as a gateway to that conservation area.
Yes, and adjacent to the park, the city is in the process of, they're in plans to build a mixed income housing project that also allows us to connect in with different income levels for conservation and for accessing nature.
That is fascinating. And speaking of various types of partnerships, talk to us a little bit about the community forest, because it sounds like that is a new type of partnership, and this partnership is with the community, and it sounds like it has a different flavor from the work you've done thus far.
Most of our lands that we've acquired to date are lands in which we allow public access, but we allow public access under the rules that the Columbia Land Conservancy staff have created. We're looking at turning that around a little bit in regards to a community forest. So a community forest is one that directly involves people in the community in making the decisions of what's allowed or not allowed on the land, and then also in the management of that land. So in some ways, it's democratizing how we make decisions in regards to these lands which are open to the public. It means sharing the responsibility of caring for that land. And it's something in which we view it as a potential new model in regards to how we are acquiring future lands in the county.
That's really exciting. Maybe we could talk about kind of a concrete example of what that community involvement in the decision making would be. So, for example, would it be land use? Are we allowed to barbecue here? Are we allowed to put our canoes in the water here?
So those are exactly the kind of questions that we're going to be asking people. I had some staff over at my house recently, and I built a tent platform on my property. I live just off the Hudson Electric Trail, and lots of bikers go by. So at my house, bikers can come by and actually camp in this little woodlot that I have. So a question came up was, well, will we want to see tent platforms and camping at the Taconic Headwaters property? And that's going to be something that the community is ultimately going to decide. Is that something they want to see? On this property, there's a really nice pond that I've been told has, world-class bass fishery on there. So will we allow fishing on this pond? The pond also has an otter population, a nesting pair of bald eagles on there. So the potential in regards to fishing might impact some of these wildlife values. So it'll be really up to the community to wrestle with, do you want to allow canoeing and fishing on the pond, or do we want to just leave the pond there for the wildlife and people enjoy it more from a distance?
And those are great examples.
With the community forest structure of governance, let's call it, will that also apply to the Taconic Headwaters watershed, the entire area?
No, so the Draconic Headwaters is just a geography, and that was a plan that we came up with. This place is the Draconic Headwaters Community Forest is a specific place in which we will be doing the work.
Right. I was just, I'm a little bit confused because the Taconic Headwaters area is a larger area than the community forest.
Mhm.
So the community forest has its own kind of rules of how things are going to be decided. It's going to be more democratic. It's going to be more community input.
Mhm.
The rest of that area, how is that going to be managed?
So that includes, it's mostly private lands that make up that watershed, and then with the multiple towns that are there. We want to begin to do more just in regards to helping landowners to better understand the importance of that land and how to care for that land. Our strategic plan is care, connect, conserve. So conserve is protecting land, which the Taconic Headwaters is an example of how we're directly connect or protecting that land. Connecting is how we bring people to the land, how we connect them to the land. So this project in Hudson, the Taconic Headwaters Community Forest, where people come out to the land and enjoy it. But care is an important piece of that plan where if you're someone who owns land or manages land or wants to volunteer to care for land anywhere in the county, we will give you the tools, the resources, and the knowledge in regards to what needs to happen, what should happen with these lands so that we can improve the overall health of the forest and the other lands across Columbia County.
A lot of what you have said gives me hope. It's a beautiful thing. And since our colleague Tim isn't here, we can ask Tim's question. Troy, what gives you hope?
I have been here. I'm entering my 5th year as the president of the Columbia Land Conservancy, and the community has welcomed me with open arms and is supportive of the work that the Columbia Land Conservancy is doing. The support has just been incredible across the county of what we hope to do. We're looking to continue with that land conservation that we have and seeing the excitement of this community forest that I see whenever I speak to people in the community. Gives me hope that there are people out there that care for land, want to improve the quality of the land, and really want to leave this place better than what they found it.
That gives me hope too. For the show notes, we'll include links to CLC, columbialand.org, and we'll include links to any of these other specific projects that we've mentioned. Is there a specific way, either through your website or otherwise, where people can chip in to buy a forest?
We have a donate button on our website where everybody is welcome to contribute to that. You can designate it to any particular project you may have interest in, or you could have it be a general funding towards the work that we're doing.
Terrific. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
And thanks to our listeners, too. If you want to hear more from Troy, you can look back on the prior episode when we interviewed he and Sarah Cashin. That's episode 74 of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. I'm Annie Scibienski, and I'm signing off.
Bye, Troy. I'm Taly Louria. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
That concludes another episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. We would like to thank Xander Powers and Devin Connolly from the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Columbia and Greene Counties for production support. And a special thanks to our listeners for joining us on this episode of Nature Calls, Conversations from the Hudson Valley. You can find links to any of the topics mentioned in this episode at our website at ccecolumbiagreen.org. Comments and suggestions for future topics may be directed to us at columbiagreenmgv@cornell.edu or on the CCE Master Gardener Volunteers of Columbia and Greene Facebook page. For more information about CCE of Columbia and Greene, visit our website or visit in person during business hours at our campuses in Hudson or Acra. Cornell Cooperative Extension provides equal programming and educational opportunities.